Hello everyone! This video is part of a series where we are developing a microservices-based social media application. We are using React for our front end and NodeJS for our backend services. But you can also watch this video as a standalone video if you are interested in automating the dependencies of our project. We will start by discussing why dependency management automation is essential even for small-scale projects. We will then move to exploring possible solutions, and we will implement one of them in our project. So here's the agenda for today. We'll start by discussing why we need automated dependency management. We will then discuss one of the possible solutions, which is Renovate. We will configure it for the whole project, which will involve 3 steps. First one, we need to add the renovate.json file. We then will set the base branch to dependency updates, and I'll come back to this later on to explain why exactly I made this decision. And then we will configure it for auto merging. We'll also come back to this later on when we actually start the configuration. I will explain what exactly auto merging is and how it can be helpful to us. Then we will check and merge some of the first pull requests from Renovate. Okay? So I'm back at my IDE, and as we can see, there are already quite a few dependencies only under the dependencies key in our package.json file, and only for the authentication microservice. Now, these are only production dependencies. There are also development dependencies, and I believe that if I add the numbers now, they would be close to 30 dependencies that we would need to manage manually if we wanted to update them and not have an automated dependency management solution. So as you can imagine, this is really not scalable. It's very hard and time consuming for us to keep all the dependencies up to date. And we are talking only about the authentication microservice. Later on, we will also add the web client, we'll add other microservices, and to keep all of these dependencies up to date, it's just too much time. We just don't have that time. Even if we were to be a big company that has a lot of resources, this would still be time that is simply wasted because it can be automated by tools that are already out there. So this is the main motivation why we need automated dependencies. Of course, there are also other benefits. For example, security updates are they are applied much more quickly than if we were to keep monitoring packages for security updates. So I'm pretty sure that there is no argument that would say, okay, we should not use an automated dependency management solution. Okay, so hopefully this gives a short motivation of why we need this in our project. Let's move on to discussing what exactly is Renovate, one of the possible solutions. And well, I can mention other solutions that are supported by GitHub, but here I have decided to go with Renovate, and I'll explain it to you why later on in this video. So I'm here at Renovate's homepage. It's provided by WhiteSource and it's free, so we can just install it as a GitHub app to our GitHub repo. Okay, we can also download it for free if you want to run the Renovate CLI tool. That could be one application. Another one is if you want to set it up on premise. But for us here, we will use a GitHub app, and this GitHub app is going to take care of monitoring our GitHub repository and creating pull requests whenever there are updates to any of our packages. Okay, so how do we install this application? Well, let's go to GitHub, but before, let me just mention one possible alternative to Renovate. This is Dependabot, and this is another automated dependency management tool. So if you don't want to go with Renovate, maybe for personal reasons or because you already use Dependabot somewhere else and you are more comfortable with it, then you can definitely use it. For me, there is a big bummer with the new version of Dependabot, which is natively supported by GitHub, and the problem is that it doesn't support auto merging. Now, this is something that can be really annoying. Imagine that we have, well, 5 microservices, and maybe in the future each microservice with a list of 60 dependencies, maybe 50, 60 dependencies. And well, we just have a huge list of PRs that need to be reviewed manually. So it's really, for me, it's a no-go. We can simulate auto-merging behavior with other GitHub actions, but then we need to add more configuration than it really is necessary in our repository. So yeah, well,
I'm not really happy with this decision of them. Maybe they will introduce this configuration later on in the future and we could migrate to Dependabot. If you want to use the older version of Dependabot, this is also possible. So you can use the version 1 still, and there they support the auto merge functionality, but they are already pushing quite strongly to migrate natively to GitHub. So, well, that is the main reason why I decided to go with Renovate. If later on, if in the future this changes, then maybe we could also consider migrating to Dependabot. To be honest, I like the fact that Dependabot has a simpler configuration file. If we look at Renovate, let me just switch the tabs here, there are just a lot of possibilities for configuration. And while this is good and this gives us, or this fits pretty much every use case scenario that we can imagine, as you can imagine, this can be a little bit overwhelming in the beginning, right? So there is always this trade-off between simplicity and flexibility in configuration. In our case here, we will use a couple of configurations that are provided by, or configuration options that are provided by Renovate. We are not going to draft too much, or we are not going to go too much into detail, but well, I would prefer if the configuration was somewhat simpler to work with. That's why that's the reason why I would tend to Dependabot, but because Dependabot doesn't have the automated dependencies or doesn't have the auto merge, then that's really a major reason for me not to use it. So I'm here in my settings page, and now I want to show you how you can install or check the installation of white source Renovate in the project. So if we are here in this page, you can just click install for free. This is going to take you to the GitHub respective page and you will install Renovate in your project. But then later on, if you want to check the installation or configure it correctly, you need to come to your settings page, and here very down we have applications, right? So once we click in applications here, we will see that there is a list of applications. I have other two installed, but here there is the Renovate application. And once I click in configure, then I will have a list of, or I will have everything related to the Renovate application. So there is a possibility of copying and pasting a base configuration file. We would need to change a few things here because this is Angular, right? So it's not really relevant for our purposes here. And if I go even more down here, we'll see that we have a couple of permission updates. Maybe you don't have this because you already installed the Renovate and you already gave the latest version of permissions. I can do this later, it's not a problem. And then here in the selected repositories, I can select the repository that I want to give access to. Now I have a few other repositories here, but these are just small personal projects, not interesting for this video. The important thing is that I select unsocial app and then I can click save. Shortly after saving the new configuration of the Renovate app and adding the repository, we have this PR that we need to merge in order to activate Renovate. If you want to go through the text of the PR, then feel free to. It describes exactly how Renovate is going to work in the repository. We will just go through this and merge this PR, and then we will start working with the configuration of Renovate more closely. So I have merged the PR. Let's go back to the terminal and let's pull the latest version of master and then adjust the configuration of Renovate. I'm back at my terminal. Let's pull the latest version of master and we will create a new pull request or a new branch. So let's check out here. This will be Renovate. Let's call it like so. And I can already push this just to set the upstream branch like so. And we will go now to the IDE and we'll continue working with the configuration. As you can see here, it has 5 lines of code and it simply says extends the base config. So what does it mean, this config :base? Which kind of options are enabled or disabled here? Well, if we just Google this, we can come to this page and this is going to give us a more detailed list of how the options are implemented in the base configuration. So important for us here, for example, is that the auto merge is disabled. So this is something we want to change, right? But let's go back to the repository and let's see if there are already some open pull requests from Renovate. Exactly. So there is already one pull request, and this is the first thing that Renovate likes to do. Instead of having these versions that allow for multiple versions as long as the major version is still satisfied, what Renovate does is that it really pins the dependencies. Now, what does it mean to pin the dependency? It means that we will always work with 8.1.1. It will never be the case that we have a caret, I think that's the name of this character here, and then 8.1.1, and in our computer we have the version, let's say 8.1.3, but then in the CI environment, because we are running the tests a little bit later in time, it's running with 8.2.0, and this is a breaking change, so it happens that it fails in the CI, but it works in our machine, and because of that we need to update the dependencies in our machine, and it may be hard to debug, right? So pinning dependencies is never a very bad thing as long as we have an automated dependency management tool. If we don't have an automated dependency management tool, then it can be a little bit cumbersome to manually update every single number here because they are pinned. But because we have Renovate taking care of it, we can just go ahead and we can pin these dependencies. This will also make sure that from now on, every time you clone the repository and you run npm install, this will install the exact dependencies I'm working with. So I think this is actually very, very positive for development for us here because it ensures we are working with exactly the same packages. So this is definitely something we want in this project. I'll just come here, squash and merge, confirm squash and merge. Perfect. Now we need to pull master once again because the dependencies were updated. And as you can see, Dependabot already starts identifying correctly the dependencies of our auth directory, right? We didn't add any path nor anything to. Oops, I think I said Dependabot, but I mean Renovate. Sorry, I'm just mixing things up. So as you can see, we don't need to add any path to our renovate.json file. It's smart enough to identify the package.json within our directory auth, right? If we want to exclude a directory in the future, there is also this possibility to exclude a certain directory from Renovate's scanning. But for the moment, we don't really need to worry about it. So back at my terminal, let's check out the master branch, pull this, and then merge this into our lm/renovate. So I'm back at my IDE, and one thing I noticed is that Renovate is pinning only the dev dependencies, right? So it's not pinning the dependencies themselves. And this happens because this is how Renovate automatic strategy works when it updates the dependencies. So if I come to the documentation here, we'll see Renovate's auto strategy works like this for npm. For npm, okay, maybe there will be always another package that it works differently. So it will always pin the dev dependencies, and it will pin the dependencies if they detect that it's an app and not a library. Okay, so in our case, it's really an app, but it's not detecting that it's an app. So we will come here to the configuration file and we will define exactly the strategy for this range strategy. Okay, so the range strategy key, we will add this and we will say pin instead of the default value. So we will use this pin behavior here. Let's copy this, go back to the IDE and add this to our configuration file. So here in the renovate.json file, I can just add a key. And this will say, we will say pin here, okay? And if I actually don't have the correct value, it's going to warn me that the value should be one of auto, pin, bump, and so on. This means that we are adding the range strategy at the right level, okay? So I will save this, and let's go back to the terminal, commit this, push this branch, and then merge this into master and see if Renovate is going to create the PR to actually pin the dependencies of our application. So back at my terminal, I'll just clear the output, add everything, commit with the message update renovate config. And once all the tests pass and the changes are committed, I will just push this to the remote repository. So now back in the remote repository, I'll just create a pull request from lm/renovate. Should be able to merge. There are no changes. Here I'll create this pull request and I will automatically merge this. I'll just wait for the tests to pass. The tests should start running here anytime soon, exactly. Once the checks are green, then I'll just merge this into master. Perfect. Let's merge this and let's then pull the latest version of master and merge it back into lm/renovate because we will still continue working on the configuration. Back at my terminal, just clear the output again, check out master, pull. And as you can see, we already have quite a few new branches here from Renovate. So let's just check out the lm/renovate branch, merge master. Actually, here we could have done a rebase, but well, it's fine. And then we push this to the remote. So before we go back and check the Renovate's PRs, what we want to do is to finish configuring the renovate.json file. So apart from having a pin for the range strategy, we also want to change the base branch for the PRs from Renovate. And we want to enable auto merge whenever we have a minor or a patch update. Okay, so let's do that. Here, I can simply say base branch, right? So base branches is going to be an array. And to make sure that we implement this correctly, let's go back to the documentation and let's see how they mention an example of base branches. So the base branches are really an array because it may be the case that we have multiple release streams, right? So they say if we have more than one release branch, then and we want to keep all of them up to date, then we can simply add more than one branch to these base branches. In our case, we have just one branch that we want. Let's go back to the Notion file, and it's going to be dependency updates branch. So I will copy this, and back at my IDE, I'll simply add this to the array, like so. Okay, this will take care of the base branches configuration, and now let's take care of the auto merge configuration. I'm back at the configuration options for Renovate, and this is exactly what we want. Okay, so they already mentioned this. You could configure Renovate to auto merge all but major updates this way, which means that it will automatically merge minor updates, patch updates, pin updates, and digest updates. And this is pretty much what we want because we want to reduce the workload of managing our dependencies. So I'll just copy this here. And back at my IDE, I will add this here. Oops, just need to delete this and this. And this is exactly what we want. So I will save this, and this is enough for our configuration here. We will commit these changes and merge into master, and then we will see what is going to happen with the PRs from Renovate. Back at my terminal, let me clear the output once again and check that we have changed the file. So I will add this core update renovates config, and maybe this single is not going to work, so I'll just commit it like so, wait for the test to pass. This should be relatively quick, and then I can push the changes to the repository, to the remote repository, and then open the PR from there. So back at my pull requests, I will click here on new pull request and from lm/renovate. Then I can check whether there are some meaningful changes. Exactly. I will create the pull request here and I will say core, again, update renovate config. And as you can see, right after we merged the PR, Renovate automatically closed an open PR because we have changed some configurations about the base branch and about how it's going to manage the auto merge. So Renovate already takes care of this automatically updating the PRs that are open once a new configuration is merged. We have no open PRs at the moment because Renovate is processing the new configuration, but soon we will start to see some of them popping up here, and then we can come back and check what exactly they are saying. So after waiting quite a bit for updates and not really receiving anything from Renovate, I was wondering what is going on. And well, as it turns out, if we keep this extend here, this extends config base, there will be some conflicts in the configuration, and it's not really clear whether these new configs are overriding the extended configurations or if the extended configs are overriding the configs that we're writing here. So I removed this extends from the file, and like so we started seeing new PRs from Renovate. So let's go back to GitHub and let's merge some of them. The first one is to update or to pin the dependencies in our dependencies array. So not the dev dependencies, but the production dependencies. And this is something, as I already mentioned, we want to do specifically or even more because I'm recording the video so that I can ensure that you have exactly the same dependencies as I do. Now, if you are in other scenarios where it is an advantage to have semantic versioning in the dependencies, then by all means go ahead and keep that configuration, is no problem. But here I think it will be much easier for you to follow also if we have the exact same dependencies installed. Another comment is that you can see that now the base branch is the dependency-updates branch. So I'll come here and I'll create a new pull request to master. Dependency updates, like so. And then I'll see that, okay, I have changed some files here and I will merge this into master so that the master is up to date with the latest version. Like so, create the pull request. And here I will directly squash and merge. So honestly, I could wait for the tests, but because these are really just simple dependency or simple management tasks, I'm pretty sure that my application will remain unchanged. So all the tests are going to pass. Of course, in a production environment, the branch would be protected, and actually it should be protected, but I disabled protection for this video just so that we can speed up things a little bit. Otherwise it was taking too long until all the checks were passing and all the individual updates and PRs were created and updated. So I decided, okay, for now, for this video, I disable the protection in master branch. Afterwards, I will activate it again. So just a small comment before we finish the video. As you can see, there are already 14 open pull requests from Renovate, which means that we have already a lot of packages that can be updated in our project. This is where we start to see the actual power or how helpful automated dependency management is.
That's it for this video. If you want to be informed every time a new video is out, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Just a click and you will get a small notification every time I upload a new video. Also, if you're interested in any topic, make sure to write it down in the comments. It's very important for me because I always take this into consideration when planning future playlists and future series in the channel. And finally, as you know, sharing knowledge is really the main motivation behind this channel. So if you know someone who could benefit from these videos, make sure to go ahead and share them with friends. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!